and I think it just be an important thing for stakeholders here to consider a sort of an equity tripartite for every water, every WSP. In other words, not having only, let's say, the county government being the only investor in water WSP, I think is not good. My suggestion is that you do consider a structure whereby embedded within that is the people through either cooperatives investing in water sector and combined with different pension funds investing in the equity to the water company and also strategic investors. I think that way you reinforce the governance structure of your WSPs and you would ensure sustainability of your governance, as opposed to where you have a richly institution whereby it can be very easily interfered with politically. That's a discussion I think we can continue having, but I think it should be a subject of discussion on how to structure the equity of your WSPs. Now, another problem is a weak enabling environment for investment, hindering the development of sustainable financing models with unstable or incomplete boards. That is another governance issue which we always observe. When it comes to selecting your boards of your WSPs, occasionally we hear a lot of controversy around it and political interference. This does not augur well for anybody who might want to consider bringing their money into your industry. So this is something which needs to be fixed. People who invest in institutions require extremely satisfactory board governance and sustainability in the independence of the boards which run those organizations. Another challenge is the mismatch between the needs and characteristics of the supply and demand side of financing. Demand is capital intensive and need for long-term financing from pension funds and other sources has to be ring-fenced. So, yes, there is a demand for more and more funding to meet the huge capital outlay required to really improve water supply and sanitation in our country. But on the other hand, the structure and models of our investment are not properly structured and ring-fenced. So when you look at the current financing model which you currently have, you have a situation whereby to take care of the WSPs, you rely on investment costs for rehabilitation and new projects. I think many of your infrastructure are really overripe for total overhaul and total improvement. And I believe this is one of the causes of your non-revenue challenges. The maintenance cost is high because when you're using whole technology, you are bound to be very expensive in delivering that service. Your operating costs, when you have political interference even in the hiring of staff, obviously you get a overburden of heavy administrative costs. And it normally comes when you have that the biggest chunk of the staff complement of any WSP is actually comprised of non-technical, non-skilled staff. Now, on the other side, we look at the financing caps. You rely on the transfers from the various sources and taxes. The transfers would come in the form of conditional grants from either the National Treasury or other donor partners. Then you have the taxes which you are each collected by either the county and other organizations to support you. And finally, your tariffs. Those are your source of revenue. Now, on the other side, sometimes you have been able to breach some of this financing by commercial loans, and this has been the mainstay of your funding, alternative funding. But the challenge, of course, has been are you able to sustain high repayment costs or the financing cost of a loan, a commercial loan, with the fluctuations in the cost of money? Then, of course, the opportunities exist in really organizing and structuring your instruments or your tariffs to create structures to have a bonds, or as I mentioned earlier, equity arrangements where you allow other parties to invest with you in the water sector. Now, of course, you would also wish to have concessionary support market finance. Now, so all these comprise your current sources of funding, but with very little, with low investments from private sector, long-term financing, which is very crucial for the investments you need to do. So your three-tier funding models consist of tariffs, taxes, and transfers. So what am I talking about now? As how you can consider to bring other additional funding, which are long-term and sustainable. When you consider tariffs as a source of support any funding models or investment models, the challenges you face there is the revenue leakages, the non-revenue waters we have talked about, your lack of sophisticated digitized billing systems, so you lose a lot of money because of the manual processes you carry, enforcement and pending payment, that is the bad debts you carry. So those provide a challenge so that your tariffs are not optimized. Now looking at the taxes, anytime you rely on taxes, of course you have to deal with fiscal constraints. The National Treasury looks at the whole country and sets priorities. At any one time, you may find that you are downgraded in priority compared to the other sectors. So you cannot be a very reliable source of funding. The challenge of scope, the challenge of governance and political interest is also another challenge. When it comes to transfers, these are majorly funding from foreign governments, global funds, global finance, etc. The challenge here is now being able to come up with bankable projects and risk of financing timelines, sustainability, and donor confidence. So, what do we do then in order to move forward? So, I want us to consider what are the enablers for a new strategy. What are the enablers? Governance is a major one, and leadership, and I think that will be fixed if there's a ring fencing of the boards of the WSPs from political interference in any way. And that's why I'm talking about, of course, and I think I'm echoing what Anthony was talking about here, who pays the piper calls the tune. Since you have one single investor called government, obviously you then tend to have to do things as per that government's policies. And in your case, it's a county government. The question is, because of the cyclical nature of governments, every 5 years, every government comes with a new policy. Is there a possibility of a long-term financing of such an institution when there is no difficult expectation of reliability and consistency in policies? So that's a challenge which needs to be dealt with. And all of us are experts in coming up with ideas, but I think we know where the pain is. The other challenges, of course, which is inequalities of access. So these things that water is an essential item and therefore it should be accessible to everybody. But then there is a cost to it. Time and sustainable funding. The problem is how much time is adequate time to be able to model a financing model. Improved free cash flows. To be able to reach such a level of having a free cash flows, which means you have a surplus and therefore are able to have a headroom to accommodate investments from other interested investors or being able to attract capital markets investment into the sector, you need that free cash flows. Engagement of strategic stakeholders, like the way you are also doing at the moment, trying to talk to all of us, the players in this industry, as well as the financiers, the banks, and everybody else. So, the other enabler is having a platform for policy dialogue to drive the investment. I think we have done the game long enough relying on the model we started with. Now, maybe I think it's the right time to consider a whole overhaul of the model. So, going to developing the finance strategy for us, for the future of WSP funding, I think we should consider how we can then introduce good management development finance into the equation. We can also really come up with bankable projects to tap into repayable finance. Repayable finance, of course, is commercial bank loans. Can we at least optimize that wherever it is possible? And also credibility and increased budget allocation. We hope we can convince us, the major stakeholder, which is the major investor now, which is the county governments, to allocate funding from their budgets to this sector. And of course, improved quality of policies and water expenditures. And finally, improved sector governance, which I overemphasize here. With that all those strategies, I believe we can then come up with a sustainable funding strategy for the future of this sector. Now, I have tried to identify local case studies of successes in several areas within your WSPs, and I find, for example, that Nyeri Muranga Water have really succeeded in management of non-revenue water and reduction of losses. I don't know whether that is true, rather, but these are some information I have gotten from my research. Customer relationship, seems Water is doing very well in customer relationship. Nakuru Water is doing well in low-income service delivery, okay? And Naivasha Water is doing well in safe water through defluoridation. And finally, the cost recovery and operations optimization seems to be doing well within LOAS and Embu Water. In terms of international case studies, I found the following countries to be good case studies for what is happening. Well, in terms of best country to benchmark with, I consider Denmark to be one, because they have got a well-developed infrastructure, efficient management structure, high quality water services, advanced technologies, robust monitoring systems, and effective governance. Effective governance, underline that. Singapore is also another system model because they have limited water sources, but they use innovative technology on water, importation, reservoir, salination, and wastewater treatment. Total area, tax collection increased in that country by over 50% when they optimize on all this technology as well as on all the strategies. Finland provides clean and safe drinking water to all its citizens, excellent water quality and efficient water management practices, and comprehensive sanitation system. And finally, the Netherlands expertise in water management and flood control due to geographical positioning, sophisticated water infrastructure, extensive system of dikes, canals, and plumbing, strong governance, management, and adaptive technologies. So, what we are saying is that there is no need to reinvent the wheel. The models already exist in which to follow, and they exist for benchmarking purposes. So, sustainable financing options I would like to mention here include green financing. I think it is possible for our WSPs and the water sector in our country to tap into green financing because it is a new rage. Every investor would wish any financial development partner would like to invest particularly in line with the ESG principles in green bonds. I remember when I was a director of the stock exchange, we did do a first green bond, and it was well oversubscribed, and even it was listed in the London Stock Exchange. So it's possible that we can introduce green bonds, fixed income investment for environmentally friendly water and sanitation projects with ESG impact, as I mentioned. The case studies, of course, include the Global Green Bonds Market issued by EIB, WB from 2017, Kenya Green Bond Program by NSC listing residents done by the London Stock Exchange, and JSC, Luxembourg, and so forth. Now, the second funding is blended financing, which should come from public and private partnerships, the PPPs, with performance-based contracts. Now, this is another wonderful opportunity to tap into, but of course, you need a lot of financial structuring to come up with these good opportunities. Now, for this to happen, you need to really create a structure whereby the projects can be undertaken by a strategic partner on a PPP arrangement has to be one ring-fenced for on tariff collection to ensure that the repayment or for the period of concessionary project structure is able to be realized by the investor and be able to exit through the structure which is there, which is build, operate, transfer model. Then we have also crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is another way in which individuals and organizations can raise funds for specific water and related projects. This, again, can only be done when there is a lot of confidence in the governance and investment model you build around your projects. So this, I consider to be our three strategies which can be applied. So in terms of sustainable financing option, which is using the fixed income bonds, I think this is a very high possibility to be able to do so, and this comes from monetizing your tariffs. You can actually monetize and ring-fence the tariffs as allowed in the Water Act and create instruments which now, from that instrument, you can then be able to issue a bond, and that bond can be subscribed. And one of the things I would like to say is that now, my industry, starting with our own organization, which is CPF, we can be your underwriting investor. You know, whenever you issue such a bond, and it has been properly structured, we will be the first one to invest in it. The other options are already there. So in conclusion, I would like to say that we have an ambitious target by our government by 2030 for universal access to water. So we need to do something about this. We also need to bridge the gap, financing gap, in order to finance all these wishes. So it's my hope that a conversation can begin to happen on how to look at all these strategies to be able to attract financing from alternative sources for your sector. And with those remarks, thank you very much for listening to me.
Another round of applause, please. I may only take maybe 2 questions. These will include a compliment. Number 1, Number 2, let's appreciate Bwana Kili, meaning that was well delivered. So Mr. Kili will exit the stage at his own pleasure. No much pressure on that as we transit to the next plenary presentation. So let's appreciate him once more as he exits. Now, our plenary 4, I want to invite the session moderator, Bwana Alex Manyasi, who is a policy and advocacy specialist at APHRC, to take us through this session. Bwana Manyasi, let's appreciate him as he comes onto the stage. Another better one, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. I don't know whether to call you moderator or CEO, but either way, asante sana. So allow me to say good morning. Good morning. Tuko salama. I am the only one, or among the few people who have refused to look like we are in the coast, and I've insisted on looking like I'm in Nairobi. But all the same, Mr. Kimtai, I want to request that you come back and occupy the very seats that you had occupied. Mr. Willis Mbai, is he in the room? Okay, kindly show up. We are calling you back for very good reasons. Yes, there. Please sit next to him. Is Miss Nena in the room? Miss Nena is in the room. Mr. Jeremy Dewey, where?
Mic check. I'm not interrupting you, Alex. I'm just checking my machine to ensure it's okay. So don't be surprised.
Mr. Robert, are you in the room? Is he? Okay. Mr. Oselu, could he be here? Please sit next to Robert. Greg Lanvin, are you in the room? Mr. Osumo. Mr. Osumo, you sit on the very last one. I don't want to confuse people's names in the process. And Mr. Mfoko. Okay. So having said that, today we're talking about innovative financing. So to kick us off with that conversation, I'll call Equity Bank, which is represented by Mr. David Nyamu. I will give you some 5 minutes to make your remarks. I think James Mangi is a very clever man. He decided to send the man in charge of marketing. So your guess is as good as mine in terms of what he's going to say. But either way, he'll combine that with innovative financing. Karibu sana.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Good morning, all. As he has rightly said, my name is David Nyamo. I'm the Director of Marketing for Equity Bank, and we are humbled to be here with you today because this is a very important discussion that involves all of us and our livelihoods. I've always said that the biggest pride we all have is the fact that we all live in the same boundary called Kenya. And I'm one person who believes that Kenyan problems have to be solved by nobody else but our own selves. As Equity, where we are here, is when you are burdened to have close to over 10 million customers. The biggest headache we do receive on a day-to-day basis is our members coming to us for assistance in matters of food and food security. We have headaches in terms of provision of shelter. We receive headaches a lot on provision of education, and more so now, even on matters of water. Because having over 10 million customers, these are the needs that they, on a day-to-day basis, approach us with, including health, has become a critical issue. So today's conversation and the intent of this conference is for us to see, as Kenyans, what is the best way? How do we have a candid discussion on how to sort out the pending issues that we are having as a country? A preacher called Tudor Bismarck incited me one of these fine days when I was listening to his preaching. And he was talking about the Zambian government. Zambian government sold a copper mine to a foreign consortium for $25 million. $25 million. Within a period of 90 days, 3 months, that consortium had made $75 million from the same copper mine. And the preacher was challenging us Africans. Do we really understand how things are done? And I think this is what this conference, as it comes to an end, we should address ourselves. What are the pertinent issues facing us in terms of provision of water and sanitation? Do we really understand how we should do things? As the bank, we have tried to think about these solutions. And Equity has 2 engines. We do have the financial engine, and we have the social engine. Frankly speaking, the social engine seems to have offtake better and have a better understanding of these situations that we're putting ourselves into. We are seeing our foundation really having to understand the educational challenges the country is having. Our social engine through the foundation again is understanding the health challenges. You can see now Equity Afya clinics coming all over, offering very affordable medical care to Kenyans. The social aspect has also properly understood the energy and environmental challenges. As at now we have planted close to 21 million trees. That is spending from our balance sheet close to over 500 million Kenyan shillings to plant trees. Why? To see if we can protect our water catchment areas. And this exercise is going on because the intention is to plant 35 million trees. The social arm properly understands matters of agribusiness. But all these things cannot be done if we are disorganized in the way we manage our water, because water is life. And as we discuss financing of water, as Kenyans, it's high time we have to understand, and I appreciate what my friend Jose has said. This debate we always have as Kenyans, that things are free, is a conversation we should really advance. Free primary education. So everybody leaves everything to government. No. I think it's high time we have a discussion on what every player or every Kenyan should participate in. So I think for me, it's either an English problem or understanding the meaning of the word free. Because if we say water, it's a basic right, it's only government that's supposed to do it, we'll take it wrong. So, on the financial engine of the bank, we want to properly understand the water industry, the water ecosystem. We've done our part in trying to protect the water towers. We have done our part in terms of harvesting. The bank has invested heavily in serious partnerships, including one of, I'm seeing top tanks here. We've released part of the balance sheet to go help homestays in financing options for water harvesting. We've gone to the extent of even opening our channels for digital loans to Kenyans for water accessories. But there is still a disconnect on how to understand the financing structure of water services providers. And to us, and to any financial institution, the basic understanding should be the mapping elements. Who are you targeting? How do you lock your receivables without having the everyday debate on non-revenue water? That's the conversation we should have. Because the need is there. The market linkage is there. It is Kenyans. Kenyans need water. Kenyans need sanitation. But have you mapped to see how best we can be able to convert those receivables to improve on your cash flows? And solutions are there for cash flow penetration and cash flow improvement. Solutions have come on smart meters, they are there. Solutions have come on every digital method you want to improve cash flows. But we are not seeing these things happening. So even before we touch you and put part of the balance sheet, we will have to seriously improve on your mapping and how you shall improve your receivables and cash flows. That is the discussion we should be having. Because I say again, the market is there. Kenyans need water and need sanitation. These debates, other debates that people have on interest rates, it is not here or there. Interest rates will be negotiated on how best you have put on the table what you are going to repay, the facilities granted to you. So we are challenging you as water services boards. I think it's high time now we sit down on a one-to-one basis, understand your structure. And Kelia said matters of governance is very crucial. Matters of even enforcement would be very crucial. Because the biggest problem again we have is with us ourselves. Integrity issues. Non-revenue water, the biggest challenge that was there is the animal. We keep talking about it every day, in and out of corruption. So if we want to move on as a country and sort out these problems, it has to start with us. Let us not expect people to come from out to come and show us how to do it. I liked the presentation on the countries that we can benchmark with. What was there you didn't put? Under Denmark. Denmark has even been able to successfully bring additional revenues in terms of waste management. How they manage waste and convert it to revenue is something we seriously also have to think. Because you have various channels you can be able to improve on cash flows. So let's have those discussions. And as the panel sits here, as Equity Bank, we are ready to put part of our balance sheet to support the water services providers for the sake of this country. We have done it in education, we are doing it in health, we have done it in agriculture. Why can't we also do it with water? So count on us for our support, but next year, let's come here with results. Proper results on non-revenue water, proper results on collection, proper results on enforcement, and proper results on even new additional projects that can be funded. This issue of PPPs, it's not rocket science. And we have examples. Everybody's talking about the Nairobi Expressway because a need was identified. And the need was, as Nairobi was growing, areas of Machakos, Kitengela became the bedroom of Nairobi. And it became a headache in terms of traffic jam. So visibility was done that if this road is created, it will have a strong repayment period, smelling where the cash is. And on the basis of projected cash flows, it became a viable project. That is how we should structure yours also. So PPPs are there and can succeed even with local institutions, whether banks, pension funds, we can be able to support them. But we have to see you present bankable solutions where we smell where the cash is. If you don't do that, I'm sorry. And people should stop thinking that lending or financing is about collateral. No, nobody needs it. It's all about how you are able to convince on your cash flows. So we will support you. I was also briefed that there were other concerns that were brought up in terms of pending bills. As a bank, we have made a decision that will support pending bills. We'll support the government of the day in matters of releasing part of the pending bills that will accelerate development. I had a discussion 2 days ago with the Director General of National Irrigation Authority. Those dams that need to be completed, and the National Treasury has had challenges because these are our challenges. And since the balance sheet is there, we will be able to offset and pay the various contractors so that the projects are completed. Because government will always pay. Whether it takes 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, funds, government will always pay. But that should not stop certain critical projects from proceeding on when balance sheets are there being held by banks. So we have made a conscious decision that we'll be able to sit down in the National Treasury, the various states, corporations, whether it is National Irrigation, whether it is Kura, whether it is Kenha, on important projects that if funds are put in, will accelerate development. So as a bank, we shall be there for that. The final one is you have a duty to Kenyans, and especially on financial literacy. There are many times that we see matters of compensation coming up, but we do not take those Kenyans through the expectations of financial literacy. We would want, where you are involved in matters of compensation, consult with us. Let's work together. We take them through the modules of savings, the modules of budgeting, the modules of investment and debt management, modules of bookkeeping, and finally even credit before you compensate them. Why I'm saying this is I had this discussion 7 years ago when the previous regime was so busy compensating and closing IDP camps. And you see innocent Kenyans being given chunks of money, 400,000, 500,000, 200,000. But we had not prepared them mentally and financially on how to manage those funds. And most of them went to waste. So these compensation projects that we're having, even for dams, involve us. Would be able to come in to see how we can first, before Kenyans or the beneficiaries receive those funds, take them through financial literacy training. So those are other areas we want to really work. So it goes few remarks. As Equity Bank Chairman, water is life. It affects each one of us, including myself and the customers that I run with. So we shall work to anytime, and even the next conference, we will be here to support again. But the next conference should have a different story. That during this time, this is what we have achieved by having a candid discussion about our problems. So thank you very much.
The seat was removed. Oh, it's here. Okay. And I'm asking him to take the seat because I'm going to be very deliberate here. We might use this panel as a benchmark on how the next conference will look like. The reason why I also asked Mr. Kimtai to stay around is so that he can elaborate more on what bankability means. Do we have the mic?
Okay, thank you very much. I really think that the elaboration by and insights shared by from Equity Bank is really enhancing this conversation. Well, the question you're asking about bankability, to us who are in the investment sector, is basically how you package the projects in such a manner that it has sustainable revenue sources over a long time period. And those resources are not in those revenues are not in danger of being sort of like either wasted or diverted. So the element of ring fencing the source of revenue which can then be used to securitize an instrument, which will then give you a long-term financing. The second aspect, as I've said, is the credibility of the institution which you run as a WSP. If there's squabbles, political challenges, and challenges of industrial relations with your staff and so forth, you may find that you are not able to attract rather good you will not be bankable. The third one is I would encourage each WSP which intends to look for funding from alternative sources like pension funds and so forth, to get a rating agency to rate your creditworthiness. And this, with that kind of rating, and I think the cost is not too high, you can actually go through the process and you learn a lot on how to sort out all the issues. You must, of course, have a track record of paying your bills. If you don't pay your own bills, which are you incur, then of course your creditworthiness would be an issue, and therefore your project would definitely not be bankable. And then of course, the technical soundness of the project. It must be technically sound in the packaging of the project. So that demands a robust feasibility study. So again, working with strategic partners and other, you should be able to get a strategic partner to assist you, do a good feasibility study, so that the document which will be produced will now become bankable. And then the big animal in the room is the governance, who you will find that, for example, before any investor gets to put money in your WSP, they'll be interested to know the characters of the senior management team, as well as the directors of that board. If you have people who do not have credibility in the board, you have a problem. And that's why I'm talking about your biggest challenge is not necessarily technical or financing, it is your governance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll allow you to take your seat. Having elaborated that, you can take back your seat. I'll then call with Mr. Wilfred Osumo. Okay. I will allow you to, not yet, no, you. Mr. Osumo, relax. I'll give you a chance. Now that we've talked about bankability, and Equity Bank has talked about the challenge not being financial. From where I sit, by the way, I keep saying this and people think that I'm being arrogant. I have said many times that there's too much money in the world. The issue has never been the availability of resources. And every time I say that, people think I'm crazy. Now, for the bankability of the sector, we all agree that there are certain things that we need to do to make it right, to attract the right resources. Let me start with Equity Bank before I allow him to go and sit back to where we're sitting. If today you were told you need to put money into the utilities, what would be the first three things you look at for you to put money into the service providers?
Okay, thank you. If I was told today to put money, the first discussion we would have is, have you mapped your area? And who are the end users? Same on that issue is, what are your expected inflows from that end user? The second one I would ask you is, how do you intend to collect the expected revenues from that end user without the possibility of wastage? So I would really address matters of non-revenue water there. It would be very crucial for me. Then the third is you'll have to show me in terms of the whole capex of the project, what is involved in establishing of this investment. Is there any other thing that we can be able to do that can really reduce the cost of the project? In terms of energy, can we be able to use other alternatives to make the project more viable and more profitable to the organization? But the most important thing is on the top, the end user. That is where we knock.
Thank you, David. So with that, I can allow you to take your seats. I just needed that clarification so that then we have a good thought process around the challenges that we have as a sector and why, how we can then fix them. Tobias, allow me to ask you what your thoughts are on innovative financing. We know the challenges, we know how far we are. It's 7 years before we, the deadlines that we give ourselves, but we are very far from getting to where we should be. Thinking about innovative financing, what does that mean?
Thank you. Thank you. Of course, everyone said it, but innovative financing is the way to go now. And because for a long time we have been having grants given to us to do what we want to do with it, but they're not coming in now. Even us as CSOs, for a long time we have been getting funds, grants to dispense, but that no longer happens. But from where we are as CSOs, we look at innovative financing in 2 aspects. One of them is looking at what someone talked about earlier here about the elephant in the house, and that's the governance structure, which is the pinnacle for all that. Then look at the structures and systems of the entities, be it government, be it local governments. Do they have adequate structures and structures in the systems in place for that? And that also touches on legal aspects. Do they have the legal backing? Do that. Then we go further. We look at, does the system, even before we talk about the gadgets, the innovations, and buying smart startups, first of all, are there systems and structures in place? Because there could be a deeper system, could be a deeper issue than just buying only the gadgets. Lastly, again, for us, we look at, does that system and structure, is it all inclusive? Who are being left behind? And that comes even the PPPs you're talking about. Are there adequate legal, are there adequate structures in place that will ensure that nobody is left behind? I think for us, from where we come from, that's a big issue for us. Because I'll give you a very best example that we want companies to come in and help us. We want them to work with us in a PPP framework. But we want them to recoup also their money. I mean, that's the basic. And to do that, they must be having some markups on how they want to charge. Will that affect service provision to the most vulnerable populations? I think that's where we come in now and say, how do you ensure there are safety nets for those who can't pay that kind of money? So we look at this in many issues. We don't look at only enterprise issue. We look at it again on the social issue. The most vulnerable in society, how are they being taken care of? Thank you.
Thank you, Tobias. Thank you very much. Maybe in the furtherance of the same conversation, please give us some of the pointers to some of the work that you're doing with regards to innovative financing.
Thank you very much. I have worked in the capital markets to promote the use of bonds to finance infrastructure in the water sector. Gentlemen like Dr. Keeley here are my customers. Those are the people we take the investment opportunities to. But I've got a message for the water sector. Let me not talk to you like a finance person. Let me talk to you as if I am a water person. And let me explain something to you. The water sector does itself a disservice by not doing two things. Number one, I think the average member of this country does not understand the water sector. They have got a huge need for water, but they don't understand how powerful these water utilities are in solving their problems. We need to go through a process as a nation to bring our population into these water companies and therefore deepen the governance structure of our utilities. Right now, I have watched all of you work, and I really admire the way you go through all the challenges, the governance challenges, the political interference, the community demands, the labor relations issues you go through. But I think there's a bit of work to communicate so that people understand the water sector. The second thing is, I don't think the water sector understands how attractive it is to the finance sector. The potential, anybody in the world of finance looks at the water sector and sees huge opportunities. And what is the reason? Number one, water utilities are perpetual. It's not about, there's no shareholder at the back, such that if the shareholder falls away, the company collapses. The strength of a water company are all the customers who are connected to your system. That's what everybody in finance wants. Everybody wants that. So set up your operations, demonstrate the number of customers you have connected, the stability of your service, and all the money will come to you that you need. Think about it. When you look at your customer deposits never decline. Why? Because the population is growing. People are just connecting and connecting to your services. The other thing to think about is long-term capital and financial planning. We want in the finance sector, we want to find utilities with a 20-year development plan, saying we want to start investments this year here, and in 20 years we want to reach somewhere else. And that capital plan, that investment plan, we need so much money, and maybe it would be 2-year money, and in some phases it will be 30-year money. You have to develop those capital plans because this is how the finance sector understands you. Finally, is operational efficiency. Once you have sorted out your governance, you have to use all sorts of tools and methods to lower your operating costs as much as possible to create the surplus, because the monthly surplus is the one that determines the maximum amount of money the finance sector can give you. So what's my message? I want to tell every single WSP in this country, from the smallest to the largest, you are the most attractive sector to the finance sector today. This is a place where everybody in finance believes they can put a lot of money because the finance sector is stuck with cash and nowhere to lend. We don't have big companies in this country to take money from us. It's only government that takes all the cash. So the water sector, your funding gap, like we all know, is over 1 trillion shillings. I'm pretty confident you can get most of that money from commercial sources.
I was actually coming to you. Greg, do you think we have hope? Like, can it be done?
So, hi, thank you for having me on this panel. I agree that the water sector should be the most attractive investment target for commercial investors because the reliability of the revenue, the perpetuality of the business, the absolute need for the products, it's not like you can substitute, right? In economics, there's a lack of elasticity on the demand. Everybody needs at least some water every single day. You cannot brush your teeth with Coca-Cola because there is no substitute for it. And so for that reason, I would actually turn the tables on the financial institutions and ask them, what products have you developed that meet the needs of these incredible clients that you have? So Coca-Cola, when they develop products, they do benchmarking. They say, does someone want cherry Coke? Does someone want, I don't know, vanilla Coke? And then they try the products. And when they don't work, they take them off the shelf and replace them with better products that the people actually like. For what it's worth, I don't drink Coke, just so we're clear. But the financial institutions, from my very, engineer's point of view, because I'm just a mere engineer and definitely not a financial person. The financial institutions have said, we have these great products. Surely, the utilities, the WSPs will want them. And then they stand here and wring their hands that the WSPs are unable to take the products. And they say, you need to do this and this and this before you can buy my product. You need to do this and this and that before you can have my product. I'm sure you guys can do it without addressing the question of with what means that transformation that is necessary to reach that product are going to be achieved, and without addressing the self-reflection of perhaps the products that we developed are like vanilla Coke. They're gross and nobody wants them. Now, I understand that the financial industry operates under fiduciary rules that I am not aware of. I understand that there are regulations that they have to comply with, and I don't know those regulations. But from your purely, I'm just an engineer. If I build a product and nobody wants it, then I ask myself, maybe I should have a different product. Maybe I should modify my product so that those people who I see as my best customers will come rushing into my store to buy my product. Instead of telling them, before you can get into my store, you have to change your clothes, you have to do XYZ, you have to earn XYZ degree, you have to reorganize in such and such a way. So, yes, I think it's possible, but I think there is a mismatch between the supply of money. Agreed, there is tons of money. I agree with you. There are trillions of euros invested at negative interest rates in German government bonds. Trillions of euros. I mean, that is bunkers money, right? It dwarfs the needs of the Kenyan sector. It dwarfs the needs of all the world sector to reach SDG 6. And yet, those people would rather definitely make a loss on German bonds than maybe make a profit on Eldoret or Nyeri or Thika, or even a weaker, a utility that is weaker, like, for example, our good clients, Bomwasco. So, yes, I think there is definitely a possibility, but I think there needs to be introspection on both sides. I am not, for one moment, saying that the utilities are all ready to be investable. I'm not suggesting that for a second. But I'm saying that there needs to be movement from both sides of the aisle so that we can meet somewhere in the middle. Now, part of the movement can come from the inclusion of technology that will ensure that payments made by people who benefit from the service, and that this revenue will flow directly into the coffers of the investor to be then reappropriated to the WSP. So let me give you an example. In Bomet, which my good friends from Bomet are here, so they'll know that I'm telling the truth, what we have done is that we've sought an outside investor named Untapped. These people put up the money that allowed them to buy CityTaps's technology, and Bomet has been paying the loan for that technology through the revenue generated by the technology itself. It is transparent, it is digital, there's no money evaporating anybody into anybody's pocket, which I took the point on corruption earlier. And in fact, Bomet Water, which is not a credit-worthy utility, has been paying back its own religiously over the last 18 months. And at the end of the operation, we'll have some of the best technology available in Kenya. They have deployed the single largest smart metering pay-as-you-go meter project in Kenya. And that's because there was an investor who was willing to change its credit rating mechanism, to change its risk assessment, and to consider that technology could serve as a way to de-risk their investment. And that, until that happens, I think it's going to be very complicated to break through the very legitimate concerns of the financiers and the very legitimate lack of capacity on the part of the WSPs. And I say this with absolute respect for both sides. I'm not here to teach anybody a lesson. I'm only here to share what has been possible at Bomwasco, and to tell you that not only has it been possible at Bomwasco, it's been possible in Tanga, in Tanzania, just south of here. It has been possible in Namibia, where the the government infrastructure, the government employees pension fund. So CPF, but for the entire government body, right? They have invested in an $8 million US dollar project to finance non-creditworthy utilities access to water meters, and on the strength of these water meters repaying the loan. So technology can be taken into consideration as a risk mitigation, and I'm preaching from my own thing here, but I think it's also a way to overcome the reluctance on both sides of the equation.
Thank you very much. Clearly, I think I'm liking the conversation. Willis, as the CEO of from the trust fund, what has been your experience so far? Because I know that you have gotten into the space where you're trying to get money innovatively to then support service delivery.
Thanks, Alex, the moderator, for the insights and the question. I like the question because this is what we have been doing, and a lot more that started with Mr. Osea. You noted he said trust fund is one of those entities that can be involved in the financing of the sector. All of us know, and we appreciate that if we don't change with the times, I'm just qualifying what Tobias said. If we don't change with the times, then we are facing extinction. Traditionally or conventionally, WSTF is a financier, but for you to do that, you have to resource mobilize. And so we have a huge department charged with the responsibility for not just fund development, but making sure that whatever we are doing is sustainable and innovative because of the dwindling resources from the direct donor funds. So in the last 6 or 7 years, we have tried our hands on innovative financing. And for us, the best thing is that most of the WSPs who are seated here, I think not less than 10, have benefited from what we perceive as innovative financing. We have Nyeri, we have Noltures, we have Muranga South, Kisumu. All these have benefited from our support. Working with the World Bank and the commercial banks to leverage financing, we have been able to support 2 programs. One called Output-Based Aid, which we leverage almost shy of 2 billion shillings using 1 billion, which we got from World Bank. And this was a subsidy scheme. But in essence, when you analyze, it's more of a blended financing because that is the best way to go. Harmonizing and trying to reduce the cost of the loans that the water companies would get. I think, as mentioned by my fellow panelists, the issue. I know Robert has said a few things, but we also understand that the commercial banks operate with central bank regulations, and so there are certain things that we do together with the water companies there are certain de-risking measures that we make sure that we help them to put in place, like opening an escrow account, whereby on a daily basis the water companies remit money to commercial banks based on the overall loan portfolio that they are getting. One of the other things that we have helped them do is the subsidy itself. It's making it to look very attractive for the commercial banks. Because, Alex, what we can say is that in the last 6 years, commercial banks were not listening to water companies, and I think we have changed the narrative by demonstrating what can be done. And today I get many calls from most of the commercial banks in this country wanting to partner with us in the various programs that we are. So we are really moving out of the ordinary to make sure that this de-risking measures, maybe one that I might want to mention before I give you back the chance, is also payment on interim, the drawdown of loans based on interim payment certificates, to just make sure that when the water companies are getting money, it's not based on I mean, all the size of the project, but the specific amounts that are needed per the milestones that have been achieved. So I would like to end there, Mr. Moderator, but that is a huge experience that can take a long time to demonstrate.
Thank you, Bwana CEO. Bwana Osum from NEMA, the issue of carbon credits. Those are some of the things that I don't know whether they're difficult to understand or they're complicated. What do you think?
Thank you, Bwana. Thank you, Moderator. I presume that the audience has a basic understanding of carbon credits. But in a layman's language, carbon credits is a trade on the amount of carbon dioxide equivalent that you can reduce in your operations. I want to give an hypothetical case of this room. Most of the service providers actually operate exactly the way this room is done. We are in Mombasa. The climate is very good. We dress for Mombasa, but we are feeling very cold. They modify the climate to operate artificially using a lot of energy, electricity, whereas they have an option to go green. Where would we be having all this light when we are actually in the tropics near the equator, where they can tap sunlight, solar green energy? And that's exactly what happens with most of our service providers. I want to give a classic case of Kiambu County. Kiambu County uses solar energy to get water from their boreholes. They've used resources to conserve the source of their water at Ondiri Swamp. They partnered with the organization and entities so as to gazette the wetland. Carbon credits in Kenya currently has a potential of about $600 million at a market rate of about $20 per unit metric ton. And based on the national determined contribution that Kenya did in 2020, where we hoped that by 2030 we can reduce it by 32%, given the current business as usual scenario of 143 metric tons carbon dioxide equivalent. So there's a lot of potential in service providers partnering with communities to conserve areas where they wear their water, reduce wastage, and also use green energy to cut down on their costs. The amount of money that you can go to the banks, you can reduce it by approximately 10% by reducing wastage, using efficient production systems, clean production mechanisms, and also reducing the wastage along the supply line.
Thank you very much. I want to take one question from the audience, or a comment at least, any that may be in terms of the conversation that we're having. Bana Shivaji. And then once that happens, I'll come back to the panel for them to tell us what they want to see in the next conference, because we cannot have the same conversation.
Thank you very much. I'll stand guided to make only one comment. My name is Malesi Shivaji. I work with KEWASNet. And I think I had a couple, but I'll just speak to the last speaker, Nema, on the issue of climate financing for the water sector particularly. As much as we appreciate the aspects of carbon credit, I think we stand guilty as a country for not really focusing on what is the potential of climate financing as an alternative resourcing for the water sector, particularly looking at the adaptation financing and the potential that exists thereof. Because most of the time when we look at the carbon credit and the carbon equivalent alternatives from the water sector, just as the example you gave, it looks largely from the perspectives of carbon capture through planting of trees, as was said by the Equity boss, but also the energy saving example that you've given. But when you look at adaptation in the water sector, there are many, many perspectives that could be deployed, but we don't see that conversation rising. And I say this because NEMA is one of the national designated agencies for leading the conversation on behalf of Kenya. Why is it that that conversation is not taking a forefront, particularly on adaptation financing for the water sector?
Thank you, Shivaji. Nema, it will come back to you for response. Is it related or different so that we see? Okay.
Ruud Kamp, Truckster in Sweden and Reka Kenya in Nairobi. I would like to raise the issue of methane gas. It is a much more serious gas than CO2. And the situation here in Kenya with hardly any sludge digestion is that 1/3 of the carbon that is in human food appears in carbon in methane gas that is released. And is it already that there are credits for methane gas? And the other thing with the methane gas related is that, like here in Nairobi, the gas is not used in the Karigari plant. And it is methane gas that can be used to propel the trucks of the Wascos.
Thank you. And I think, as Nema, you respond, maybe how to ensure that we also move it from being academic to being practical.
I think I start with the second question, then I move to the first question. We are currently reviewing our national air quality regulations, and we realize that in terms of carbon credits, we are slightly as a country lower tapping from the compliance market. what's currently being tapped in the country is from the voluntary carbon credit standards. We are traditionally focused on carbon dioxide, but we are currently, in the last week in our dailies, we ran requests for suggestions, opinions, and comments for the national air quality regulations. We hope that the national air quality regulations, that when they come out, they may be more stringent and capture other greenhouse gases. It's a journey.
Easier than CO2 capture. So I would start with the methane gas. At least on the let me try again. Yes, that's better. Capturing CO2 is not easy. Capturing of methane gas from wastewater is very easy, and it's a proven technology. And it's directly a reason to convert the existing sewage treatment plants with digesting and reuse and use of the gas. Just a suggestion to think about. And at least a good chance for financing.
Your question is very good if only it can be, everything is as a standard. Currently, the international standard is a carbon dioxide equivalent, and we can't change the narrative. However, we realize that all other greenhouse gases make a contribution to the climate change. And very important that subsequently, as we are going forward, as we are developing our guidelines and regulations, the other greenhouse gases become important and can be captured by our accredited laboratories.
Thank you. That was the intention of my question.
Okay. Going back your second question, because I consider it to be quite practical, and that's why I didn't start with it. Actually, you bring out the elephant in the room. I'm not sure whether there's a service provider here who has tapped into the adaptation fund. We are the accredited entity for Green Climate Fund. We had a discussion with the Professor Blessing on the challenges that he has gone through in getting financing for planning of Kisumu County, Siaya, and Homa Bay. To assist him, we developed guidelines so that any proposal project that comes to us, so long as it doesn't have, it meets the basic requirements, as we just transmit it direct, so that it can be considered at the international level. And we have been, on that basis, we have been rated highly in that we are facilitating projects for financing under the Green Development Mechanism, and we are currently supporting the South other countries. So it's up to the service provider to start from where I started, where my presentation started. Improve your production system, reduce wastage, tap into green energy, incorporate community contributions for the conservation of watersheds and ecosystems in which feed your sources of your water, so that you can now start tapping into, for instance, the Green Climate Fund. It's that quite simple. Nobody will finance a program, a project, when you are using electricity the way this hotel is being used. I gave an example of this building. when you are using almost 90% electricity, almost 100% electricity, which is intermittent, when you have almost 50% of your water supply being wasted along the supply line, some of it being stolen, repair systems not up to date, and then capacity. Do you have the human capacity within your establishment that can tap into the climate financing? Making an assumption that you come from a water service provider, apply your knowledge so that your organization can convert into the example that I gave of Kiambu County. Yeah? If you can, for instance, convert your production to use 30% solar energy, you can use that to apply for financing to replace exactly that. And that's what exact carbon credits is.
Thank you very much. And as you can see, like I said, I'll give you 1 minute each to then tell us what you want to see in the next conference. Honestly, we can't have the same conversation that we had in 2019. Now we're having it in 2023. We cannot have it in 2024, 2025 in a minute. What do you want to see? Great.
Okay, I'd like to see a conference that's about results of projects that have actually happened rather than invocations about intentions to do projects. And the specific projects that I would like to see happen are projects that have been de-risked by technology. So for example, you're building a desalination plant on the coast here, and you want to make sure that you're going to get paid, the investor is going to get paid. Well, maybe you install some specific technology like City Taps' technology that's going to ensure that the cash that's generated by selling the water will actually come back to the investor and will not just disappear into the meanders of the wherever they might disappear otherwise. That's one thing that I'd like to see. The second thing I'd like to see is I'd like us to start talking not so much about non-revenue water, but about collection efficiency. And the reason for this is that it's all great to increase your to decrease your non-revenue water and increase your revenue is super. But as long as your collection efficiency is below 100%, all you are doing is increasing your accounts receivable over time, inevitably every single month. And that means that from the bank's point of view, and a very legitimate bank's point of view, you're not bankable because your accounts receivable keep increasing every month. So I'd like to see some projects where people have been collecting over 100% at the collection efficiency and being able to then go to the banks and leverage that for bank financing.
Thank you. I know for you, you have an interesting, yes.
My challenge would be to CEO Anthony and Chairman Bonakinya. I suggest that next year, let's have a competition of the WSP with the best bankable project.
Thank you.
Let's just have a competition. And then they will get an award.
WSP.
Thanks. Mine would be to see a harmonized result of demand and supply in the water sector. That whatever we are putting now in terms of the processes will have yielded results next year.
Thank you. Mfoko?
Next year I come here, I think I want to see more of mutual accountability mechanisms among the service providers. And more of them, from what you have seen here, the ones that are bagged, most of the awards have been from around here. We want to see some that are far flung. And that depends on how they be supported in terms of what the engineers talked about now, bankability. That word bankability has been talked a lot. How can they be supported to become bankability? It's very critical. So I'd like to see the mutual accountability mechanisms for all the service providers. Thank you.
And thank you to the panel for having had this interesting conversation. I know it's a very difficult conversation to have. I personally hope that in the next conference we'll be having a more wider conversation with all the players in the sector, and I hope that we can start measuring the progress we are making, so that then we know and can call out to those that are being left behind what kind of support they require for them to also make progress. Thank you very much, and back to the moderator. Asanteni sana.
You can take a photo for this session. You can take a photo with your moderator for the session. You also want me to be part of it? Obliged. I was the one moderating the session. You can see the way. Thank you. One more round of an applause, please. We know one of the most emotive discussions in the sector is financing, and that's why it took a little bit of time because of the huge budgetary deficit, and I think we are looking at innovative financing. Now, in the interest of time, we transit to the last plenary. Then after this, we go for breakouts. You know, we always start late. When we start late, the program is distorted. But I would request you, Chairman, I don't know, we call a gala dinner in the morning or what? Because yesterday when we called the gala dinner, the hall was full. There was no space. So now you wonder, where have these people disappeared to? I think a gala dinner is a bait. We will change it. We'll be having it in the morning. Then we lock areas that we have people. So we know what to do next time, Chair. So at this juncture, we still have tomorrow is booked. If you look at your event booklet, page 44, exciting excursions within the city of Mombasa, some of the major historical sites that we have on planet Earth. Fort Jesus, it has been given an uplift. It is not the Fort Jesus you used to know. Hela Park, and we also have the technical tour by Top Pipe. So kindly register at our registration desk. We are closing it by 1 p.m. So I want to invite Dr. Mdondo to come and lead us through this session on capacity development and research to invest in investing and develop human digital capital in water and sanitation sector. And I want to believe that you are not going to take more than 1 hour. Try to manage Professor Blessings. I don't know if you'll be able to manage him. I know if he's guided well, he'll be able to use 15 minutes. But Prof, we know we love you. We would give you even an hour, but please bear with us. But we also want to implore all those who are here that when you go for health break, please visit the exhibition booths that are scattered all over, so that you can sample some of this technology, engage financiers and partners in different ways. That is why we are here. So after this, we have a breakout, and the breakout sessions. Baraza 1 is in a tent here. Baraza 2 is in the conference. So Baraza 1 is a tent, mark that. The auditorium remains.